the end of PlayStation VR2, Quest Pass, and the Vision Pro already has 1,000 apps. There's some more to come in the first episode of Just VR Gaming podcast with your host, The Integer, and Lily. Lily, say hi.
Hey there, awesome VRers and gamers. I'm Lily, your guide in the virtual realms. So pumped to dive in with you all.
Fellow VR gamers and VR gamers to be, this is the first episode of Just VR Gaming podcast, episode 1, maybe the first and the last. Let's see how it all goes and how we can keep it up and so forth. Try and make it a weekly thing where obviously we talk just about the important or most important things according to the Integer, the book of the Integer, as far as VR is concerned, or XR, I suppose is what it would be called, covering all the things, including mixed reality, augmented reality, spatial computing, and obviously VR as the main kind of umbrella, covering obviously PlayStation VR2, 1, Quest 2, 1, Quest 3, and even devices that we don't have to some degree as well. Lily, are you excited about today's episode? Our first one?
Oh, absolutely buzzing. Launching our first episode is like stepping into a brand new VR world, full of endless possibilities. Can't wait to hear what the community thinks. Let's make it a blast, shall we?
She's excited. Remember, you can watch and listen to podcasts on all the usual places such as YouTube Music, YouTube itself, Apple, Spotify. Should be in all the usual places. So listen, watch wherever you want, wherever you like, however you want, while jogging, while pooping, maybe while using your Quest 3 in the toilet, wherever you're into, we're there for you. So thank you for your support in advance. Let's discuss the Apple Vision Pro. I have an article here, website mount again. We're on roadtovr.com, giving credit to the writers here, as we do. So this is talking about how much apps there are now. And I just want to talk about this in the sense of like, I don't have an Apple Vision Pro to give you guys content on that, unfortunately, at least directly from a hands-on point of view. So obviously, again, anything that you can do to support the channel will help me invest in such a thing and give you some coverage on spatial computing from the perspective of Integer and Lily, as far as, the book of, so to speak. So in this article, they're talking about the fact that there's now 1,000 plus Vision Pro native apps available. This is a February 19th article, so there must be even more now. And, I suppose we expected there to be a lot of developers interested in making for Apple products, because if you get on early, just like the old days of the App Store and iTunes and that, it was a lot of money to be made. There was a time where you could make fart apps and you make money. It's kind of interesting, the parallels between this and content creation in general, where people seem to not be able to grasp, but there's a difference between doing the things that worked 10 years ago versus now. 10 years ago when a platform was new, like a Twitch or anything else, you could just do the simple things. Just being able to do the thing was enough. But obviously, in 2024 and beyond, you can't do what worked 10, 15 years ago. You now have to do different things. I mean, now we have mobile phone apps that can let us catch a ride before we can even put our shoes on. I remember days you'd call up for a taxi or whatever, and it would take like half an hour to an hour, before you even got to leave, and the thing would be there. Much less it be the right cab and it be a legit one as well, and not some pervert or something. So times have changed, obviously. You have to change with times, and so it's not surprising that so many people are building apps so quickly for it. What is interesting, as I guess, is how many of you guys actually have this thing that are listening to this, watching this podcast? How many of you actually have a Vision Pro? Do you think that's a thing that is going to be standard? Do you think it's more as a glimpse into the future, so to speak? Because, it's very expensive. To $3,500. I don't think it's officially available in the UK yet, where I am located. And there's not support yet, last we checked, of official support from the likes of like Spotify and Google. So let me just kind of go through a little bit of the article here. So we have it's 1,000 plus apps designed for Vision Pro, and that's a fair sight more than 600 apps reported by the company right before the headset's February the 2nd launch. It's launched February the 2nd. This is some good progress. It just goes to show as well how difficult it can be to stand out if you're an app maker or a game maker or what have you. It really is about the eyeballs you get and not launch. It used to be launching was king, but now you have to be careful about how you go about these things, because you can end up getting nothing. But it's pretty interesting scenario and situation. So if we go down here, so notably there are some apps that have opted out entirely, including Facebook, Spotify, Google via YouTube, Facebook via Meta, and Netflix. Right, also it's accessible via Safari, which is Apple's browser. Although it's hard to imagine it's not a clear snub at Apple. So I guess a lot of them are or were holding that. Understandably as well, obviously, Facebook, aka Meta, or Meta, aka Facebook, have their own device, the Quest 3 and the Quest Pro, building the Quest Pro 2, Quest Pro 2 coming up, I think with LG. And so they have a reason, I suppose, as well to not want to. Spotify, I guess Spotify is just holding out to see if it's going to be worth the development, you know. They're more in the music, obviously, and the podcasting space, ironically. And then we also have, obviously, keep saying obviously, I got to stop saying obviously every minute. We have Google, aka YouTube. What's their line of things? They've tried the VR devices a few times. They don't have as much of axe to grind. So there should be, I think that could be interesting. Maybe they're waiting that as well, but in terms of whether it's worth the resources and so forth. And then Netflix, probably the same deal. So most of them are probably looking at it as a wait and see. I think if it was a $500 device, or even maybe a $1,000 device, they probably would all be on board for the most part. Because it's so expensive, it does feel like it's not going to be something that many people have. So it doesn't feel like it's a great resource of time and money at the moment. You're taking a chance. You're taking a chance with it. So some of them are holding out and waiting. Continuing in the article here, it says, well, these are the parts that I've highlighted, by the way. It's kind of doing my due diligence beforehand for you guys to not waste time. Some third-party developers are looking to capitalize on a lack of mobile computing essentials like Spotify and YouTube, aforementioned, by offering paid apps. So they're offering paid versions to the same thing that you probably would expect will be standard. Such examples are Vision Tunes app for Spotify and Juno for YouTube, now floating around on the App Store. So none of these are free. Because of the lack of free support, they're taking advantage for now and trying to get that money, trying to get that bag. And apparently the most expensive Vision Pro app at the time of this article is one called Lively Elements, which lets you interact with the periodic table of elements, scientific elements, for an easy one-time payment of $98. What a bargain. What do you guys think? Lily, what do you think about a $98 app that lets you interact with the periodic table of elements? Does it sound elementary to you?
$98? Whew, that's a pretty penny for virtual elements. It must be quite the immersive experience to command such a price tag. I guess for some die-hard science fans or educators, it could be a dazzling way to explore the periodic table. Still, it might just set a new benchmark for premium in the app world. Let's hope it comes with some serious virtual fireworks for each element at that price.
Man, that's wild. It's a wild price. So yeah, where do you guys stand on it? What do you think of the Vision Pro? Do you have one? Do you want to see coverage of the Vision Pro, whether it be speculative or otherwise? Do you care? Do you think it's overpriced? Do you think it's overhyped? Or do you think it's just a glimpse into the future? From my perspective, I think that is where things want to be, especially in terms of productivity. I've got another video where I discuss the differences between VR, AR, XR, and MR, which is virtual reality or augmented reality, mixed reality, extended reality. And I have come to the conclusion on that basis and researching that the Apple Vision Pro is not a VR device. It's not even VR. It is really a mixed reality stroke spatial computing or stroke advanced version. I like to think of spatial computing as an advanced version of mixed reality, at least in this example, whereby you're taking the technology of mixed reality and you're upping it, making it faster, adding some AI stuff and making it respond in real time so that you can have things like floating calculators on your living room wall, as it says there at the top of the article, or have your, Word docs or whatever it is, the apps for the Apple, floating across your desk and you can interact with them and so forth. But it doesn't have any capability directly of taking anything that is like your games from your PC or your Steam or whatever and then enveloping yourself in a full interactive VR experience is what is classed as VR when it comes to VR itself. So it's an interesting situation. What do you guys think then? Vision Pro or Vision No? Let me know your thoughts in the comments on whatever platform you're watching on. And maybe I'll throw a poll as well. Look for any relevant links and any interaction opportunities within the description, pinned comment, or whatever is the relevant facsimile to whatever platform. I couldn't think of another word there. Sounds really old-fashioned or maybe too deep. But you know what I mean. Whatever's similar. Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our segment of the week. That is Name That VR Game. You're going to hear a sound and you're going to tell me from what VR game it's from. So, what game is this sound from?
Excuse me, master. Are you looking for this?
Did you get it? Was that too hard? Let me know. Answer will be in the pinned comment on YouTube or anywhere else where I can do similar. Thanks for playing along. Okay, now, let me ask you something, Lily. What do you think of the Meta Quest Plus versus the Microsoft Game Pass, with the Plus being just two games you might have or not care about, versus like 300-400 of Xbox. What do we think of that? And be honest.
Comparing the Quest Plus offering with just 2 games per month to Xbox Game Pass is a bit like comparing a trial-size snack pack to a full-blown buffet, isn't it? Xbox Game Pass has been like a gaming treasure trove, offering a smorgasbord of titles across genres for a monthly fee, whereas the original Quest Plus seemed more like a tiny appetizer.
Yeah, Lily's been a little bit more diplomatic than I would be, or maybe she's being quite blunt, but let's just say you're probably like me with the old version of the Meta Quest Plus service. Kind of garbage. 2 games you don't want, or 2 games you already have. Who cares, right? Well, now we're going to discuss the new and improved Meta Quest Plus, what I like to call Meta Quest Pass. So this story was originally brought onto our attention by mixed-news.com. Shout out to them. Basically, it's an actual Game Pass. Well, it's almost. I don't want to get you guys too excited because it's not exactly quite as amazing as all of that. Let me just kind of dim this light here in case you're watching here. So, you know, it's better. It's definitely better. Let me give you kind of the overview and the most important parts of it here. So it's a subscription service like Game Pass, essentially. What you used to have before was just 2 games each month. And as long as you were subscribed, you could access those games. If you unsubscribed, you could access those games. That's, I believe, still. No, let me say that again. If you unsubscribed, you could access those games once you subscribed again. But as long only while you're subscribed can you use those games. So it was the same way as Xbox or PlayStation in that way. But it was only 2 games, and you know, the 2 games doesn't give you a lot of chance of caring about the 2 games they put in there. So what they've now added to the system is essentially a rotation of games. I think it's like 11 games, something like that, but we'll get into that in a moment. Let's just look here. So it's £8 a month or £60 a year, which is roughly, doing quick translation, probably $10 a month or $60 to $65 a year, roughly. So it's got a revolving catalog of games, it says here. After they've been redeemed, they'll be yours for as long as you are a subscriber. Let's zoom in here a little bit. That's fine. So you have a flexibility, so you can cancel your subscription at any time. You can resubscribe and redeem your monthly titles you've been waiting for and ready to play. Did I read that right? Your redeemed monthly titles will be waiting for you and ready to play. So let's get that phrased right. But you can cancel your subscription at any time, and if you want to play the games again, then you subscribe again, and then you're good to go. But you have to claim the games, obviously, while you're subscribed. So you have to be subscribed to claim the games in the first place. And in this case, you're claiming 2 games. The rotation of games are there while they're there, so they can be removed at any time. And the list of the games itself here that we have is an interesting bunch of games, actually. I think I've just clicked into there to show you all the games here, actually. Let's just see. So there's new apps in 28 days, so they're like rotating in like a monthly thing. So it's like a month to get into these games. If you get the years plus of Meta Quest Plus, you will get £20 worth of store credit, which will be about $28 to $30, something like that. For my American cousins, as most of you are apparently in my audience. God bless America and all who ride in her consensually. So you have in the catalog at the moment, you have Walkabout Mini Golf. I think this is quite rated as well. Onward, The Climb. I want to try this one. I don't know if I got the vertigo for it or not. It's a climbing mountain game. Yeah, it's an Oculus, I suppose now Meta original. There's Until You Fall. Let me know if these are good games or not, because some of these I haven't played yet. I have Jurassic World Aftermath Collection on the PlayStation VR2, but we could compare if we test the service out and do a video on it for you guys. I could compare the 2. Typically, you're getting achievements on the PlayStation. You don't have achievements on the Quest, at least for the most part. That's something I should have added to the Versus. I quite like achievements. That's kind of a plus for the PlayStation. Fruit Ninja, Sports Scramble. I think these are kind of like mini kind of game things. Hand Physics Lab, A Township Tale. Looks like a tale of 2 brothers almost in VR maybe. Demeo is like a board game type thing, come real life thing. It has mixed reality thrown in there as well, so that'd be pretty cool if you're into that kind of thing as well, kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, but with mixed reality with stuff on your head while you sweat. That's pretty cool. Red Matter is meant to be very rated as well. Red Matter 2 is meant to be even better, so that's a good deal as well. Aspire 1 VR Operative. I just want to look in this one actually. Wasn't this the one that was like, did I add this to a wish list? I guess I didn't. I was thinking of a different game maybe. Be careful with the sound. I think it's muted. That's cool. Is this the stealth one? That's something else. It's kind of stealthy actually. Yeah, it is kind of stealthy. It's probably the one I'm thinking of. So that's pretty cool. A couple of them I think are like Oculus/Meta originals. These are ones they kind of own for the most part, or they don't have to make too many deals as their first batch. And then finally in the list is 2MD VR Football Unleashed All-Star. That's a long one. That's a VR game if ever I heard a VR gaming title. So some decent stuff in there. Stuff that I'm aware of that I would rate that's in this list is probably like The Climb. Mini Golf is meant to be pretty good. Walker Mini. I think Until You Fall is pretty good as well. Jurassic World Aftermath Collection is meant to be good. Demio, Red Matter, Aspire, I think. So this is a good list of games if you haven't got them already, you haven't played them. Certainly it wouldn't be bad at a $10 or less value to be able to play these games, as long as you can potentially complete them in a month, because it's appearing like they're going to be rotated out and you got like 28 days essentially to get them knocked out. So that's kind of a thing to think about and take into account. They don't give you potentially much time if it works like that. They're not giving you as much time as you would normally get with your normal Game Passy type things. So I will close that window and we'll just kind of look back here and see if there's any other things that I've highlighted for you guys to think about and for us to kind of look at and so forth. One of the things I remember is that if you haven't used it before, like myself, then you do have an option at the moment to have a 3 months Meta Quest Plus. I also believe that if you are buying the console for the first time, use our Amazon link. Just click any of the Amazon links in there. You can buy socks, biscuits, toiletries, things that you do in the bedroom. I won't know it's you. It's all anonymous. As long as you use the link within 24 hours of clicking, you'll be up in the channel for free. It's great, especially if you're getting the Quest free. But certain versions of the Quest 3 that you get does come with an option. I think it's 512 gigabyte version will give you a couple of months free, something like 6 months or something like that. Free 6 or 12 months free of Meta Quest Plus. So this might be a great time to get grabbing on that offer, because now you're getting this rotation of games as well, and it'd be a great way for you to start and have a bunch of games to play. So this is a lot better than the original system. What do you guys think? Do you guys think this is a better system? Like me and Lily, I think this is a better system. I think that if they can add even more games, it could be really even more competitive. There is another competitor that's doing this already that I want to try out for you guys as well and do video on. I forget what the name of it is. I think it's Infinity something or other. They have a subscription service type thing as well that does work with the Quest or any PC VR thing. So that would be interesting to check out and to do comparison. But what do you think of this stuff? Do you guys like these subscription services? Do you like kind of not owning games and being encouraged to just kind of play things on a rental basis like this? Does it bring you back to the days of Blockbuster and old style Netflix where they used to send things through the letterbox almost, where you just kind of borrowed them, you don't own them? Do you like not owning your games? Do you like these services? Do you buy games after playing them through these services that allow you to access them temporarily? And you won't be surprised to know that this episode is sponsored by, well, yours truly, the Integer, aka JustVRGaming, bringing to your attention the very cool websites that we have available for you that will contain and contains many cool VR related things, from articles to PDF, books, some free, some paid to support the channel, and the JustVRGaming.shop as well. It has all manner of cool merch to be showcased soon enough once I can afford my own merch, and many other cool stuff. So do check those out, support the channel. Some options are free as well. You can use our Amazon links if you're going to buy any of the VR stuff that we talk about, any of the devices and so forth. Yeah, use the link within 24 hours of clicking and it will count, and you'll be supporting the channel for free, and you'll allow me to make more videos, more regular, more sooner, and you'll be able to also upgrade Lily GPT's infrastructure so she can give even more unpredictable responses. Isn't that right, Lily?
Ah, an upgrade, huh? Well, who wouldn't love a glow up? I could be learning new jokes, telling even sassier stories, or getting a digital makeover. Just imagine the possibilities. Lily 2.0, now with extra sparkle and a side of unbeatable gaming tips. Let's level up.
So again, we're taking an article from one of our colleagues here, roadtovr.com. Meta reportedly rejected Google partnership to bring Android XR to Quest. So XR, again, I have a video on it, but XR is basically extended reality. It covers every gamut of anything to do with non-flat experiences, things that are more immersive, such as VR, MR, mixed reality, so on and so such. So that's Android's platform for that, essentially. Google and Meta held a meeting late last year wherein the two companies discussed the possibility of bringing Android XR, explain that already, to Meta headsets. That's your Quest, Quest 2, Quest 3. Now, Google is allegedly still open to the idea, but Meta, aka Facebook, rejected this. Now, Quest already runs an open source version of Android, but the headsets don't have any sort of access to standard Android apps built for mobile devices. Like your Apple Vision, for instance, has native support for all of the iPhone, aka Apple ecosystem, boasts over 1.5 million iOS apps, in addition to 1,000 native Vision Pro made native apps, right? So that still would make Meta more competitive with Apple in this scenario, because you can't just go and use, and we're not including that someone's going to leave a comment about side loading and all this kind of stuff. We're talking about the base consumer experience, plug and play. We're not talking about going onto YouTube videos and doing hacks, getting out screwdrivers, cutting things off, soldering, ironing things like that. So most people ain't going to do that kind of stuff, however easy or hard it is. So as far as a standard consumer experience is concerned, at the moment, you can't just use Android apps without going and using some kind of third-party tool, side loading and so forth. So with the Apple Vision, the ideology is, apart from the native apps, that you will eventually, if you can't already, be able to just open up any Apple native thing and just have it as a floating app in your environment and so forth. So if they did combine with Google, in that case, with the market that Google has, obviously it would, and with the Quest being like, the Quest I think is the #1 VR headset as far as just volume. It is to the phone industry what Android and Google is to Apple's iPhone in comparison, where there's maybe less people. Is there less people that have iPhones generally? I would say so. More people have Android, really. Like, if you think about somewhere like India, where most people are using mobile phones, for instance, and most of those devices will be an Android, I would guess. So it's a similar thing with the Quest. The Quest is kind of like the sweet middle ground of VR, the cheapest entry point, and you combine that with Android native support, and then you have a very serious competitor to what the Apple Vision does as far as mixed reality, spatial computing with apps and so forth. But this has been rejected, so, it will make it more competitive with Apple in terms of those aspects of things I explained. However, it required a company to give up a good deal of control over its platform, it says here in the article. So I then highlighted here that, as with all things Android, Google has more than just a potential Meta partnership in mind, as it's suspected the company wants Android XR to fill the same role for XR headsets as its mobile operating system does for smartphones. So there's a kind of been a dominant tech and therefore dominant proliferation of their systems and so forth, because you'll be relying on them for the back end and for many other things. Now, also in addition to this, obviously Samsung, I say obviously a lot, sorry guys. But to be, Samsung announced earlier this year that it's working with Qualcomm. Now, Qualcomm is like it's not Fish X, it's basically the #1 operator when it comes to anything to do with mobile technologies, as far as processors and graphics cards are concerned to some degree as well. So, the PlayStation, both the PlayStation VR2 and the Quest have a version of Snapdragon Qualcomm processors, as an example. So when you're dealing with any of that stuff, you pretty much go to Qualcomm and they hook you up. Unless I'm mistaken. I'm pretty sure it's the same name, I remember. If I'm mistaken, then I look like a fool right now. And you can use one of my Amazon links to check out JustVRGaming.shop to thank me for my stupidity and looking stupid right now. Cheers. So, South Korean giant being Samsung delayed the still unnamed XR headset to make it more competitive with the Vision Pro. So Samsung's coming up with their own one as well. Samsung's a big player when it comes to mobile and many other things. They have great memory and hard drive stuff. Pretty much all of my hard drives in my PC is Samsung stuff. I have the it's charged as well. Perfect. I have the Samsung watch as well, smartwatch. I'm just gonna turn it on now because it's finished charging. So they're a big player when it comes to Android as well. So they'll be more than happy to work with Google in the way that Meta might be a little bit more cautious and so forth. So this is an interesting thing that's going on, because we've got that device to come out. It'd be great to be able to cover that device as well, see what Samsung's version of it looks like. Obviously, Samsung have their ecosystems that would want it to connect up with your watch, your phone and everything else. Obviously, Google had their own thing as well. Meta don't have a watch per se. They don't have a phone per se either. So it's kind of interesting to see how this all develops and so forth. Also, I've highlighted here that Meta has partnered with LG to ostensibly manufacture the next wave of Quest headsets, which reportedly could be both a high-end Quest Pro 2 as well as a cheaper headset. So I don't know if that means that they're also going to be handling what would be the Quest 4, I suppose, as well. LG are good people as well, because they my monitors are ironically LG. My 4K monitors are LG monitors. So the thumbnails and all the things that I'm building, the coloring and everything else is off the back of the LG tech. So we're being in good hands for that as well. So LG know their stuff. I guess what's interesting and the takeaways here are, what do you guys think? Do you think that it's a good idea for my watch to go off because it's just been connected on? Don't know if it might pick it up or not. But do you think it's a good idea for Meta to add in full support for Android XR and allow you to use all those sweet Android apps natively in the Quest ecosystem? Have them floating, have a calculate app floating in your toilet. You know, you're on the toilet seat, you're doing the business, you've got a number 16 going on, and you need to calculate some quick math about how much toilet paper you're going to need to cover the whole event. It'd be useful to be able to go open up your Android calculator app and be able to calculate that without having to spend $3,500 to do it. So do you guys think that it would be a good idea for Meta to join up and partner with Google, and that basically resistance is futile? Or do you think that there's a better strategy for them to maybe come up with their own stuff, maybe come up with their own native things? Because they picked up there, that's trying to take the television off this freaking screensaver mode that comes up every minute, messes up the coloring and the lighting, and it's distracting, trying to leave the thing paused. Anyway, I digress big time. So yeah, do you guys think that would be a good idea? Do you think that it's wise for Meta not to want to, or to be cautious about it? Or do you think they're being silly? Do you think they can build their own ecosystems and not need the millions of apps that are available on Android? Do you think they're taking a big risk letting Samsung be the ones to partner with them instead? They switch views. This one's an interesting one, I think. Well, obviously, I think all of them are interesting, otherwise I wouldn't have them in the podcast itself. But this one's interesting in the sense of, it'll be interesting to hear you guys' thoughts at the risk of sounding repetitive by saying interesting every minute. The idea of this story is that Meta, aka Facebook, aka Quest, have rejected partnership with Google, who are the creators and owners of Android. You know, your phone, if you're not an Apple person, that's pretty much your option. You're either Apple or Android. There used to be another one, was like Windows, something like that. And the idea of like why, there's some questions as to why and so forth. But let's go through the article and then we can kind of wax lyrical on that in a moment. So I think personally, I think it would be pretty cool to be able to use all the Android apps natively. So that part of me, putting the business side a part of it and the business potential and the competitive side of things, I think it would be great for consumers to have a Vision Pro that isn't $3,500, which would basically namely be the Quest 3 or Quest 4. I'm sure that Apple will come up with something cheaper as well over time, but they could be potentially risking market share by letting Samsung be the one to fully partner up with Android, because I imagine that the Samsung one is going to be cheaper than the Vision Pro. I imagine it's going to be similar features, but it will be interesting with the Samsung version is if they manage to make it an actual VR device as well, where you can actually do your gaming and so forth. Maybe it doesn't necessarily have to be as strong graphically as the Meta Quest, but if it has a little bit more of a utility, maybe if it's priced at say like $1,000 or something like that, it might be probably more than I'd be surprised if they managed to add all those things and still price it at $500 or $500, $600, $650 as a Quest 3, say, or the PlayStation VR2. But it looks like it's going to be more of a Vision Pro type device, which would mean it's more focused on mixed reality and real world productivity and business use. So I think that it'd be interesting if they could do that. I think that Meta risk losing market share potentially if they do manage to bridge that gap with their version of the machine by having it have gaming capabilities as well, but also be able to run all of your apps and do all the things that Android stuff does. And they could be really risking market share. It's going to depend on the price. It's going to depend on whether it has controllers as well for the Samsung one. And if it works well with PC and plays well with PC and so forth, then it could really be dangerous. But I think at the moment that whole productivity thing with a headset on your head still feels pretty niche. I haven't personally experienced a scenario where I felt like I can get my work done quicker while having some kind of VR device on my head for doing really anything. But that's not because I've tested everything that offers. Just from a layman's point of view, looking at it, it seems like something that's more like fun and silly and not really people really working and being fully productive. I can't see having this kind of heavy device, whether it be Apple or whatever, on your head to calculate some stuff where you can just get your phone out and just do it quickly if you need to. I can see the convenience of having what I've seen in some streamers' house, and there's this like computer on their freaking fridge where it's a screen and all that stuff. I can see how that would make sense because it's there on the fridge already, but having it so that it's floating on your head on what people are reporting is giving them headaches and stuff like that potentially, I can't see how that's quicker than just flipping out your phone and doing what you need to do. So if they can get it down to be more convenient and lighter. I think once we get to that stage where it's just glasses or contact lenses or whatever, that's when they'll be really ready and less niche, and it can become potentially more convenient. But I think as it's an effort at the moment, I think it would need to be more broad to be successful in the scenario of this kind of thing in terms of making it work. So with all those things in mind, with all those takes in mind and what have you, what do you guys think? Again, do you guys think that I am right? Do you agree, disagree? Do you think that they would need to make it more broad and make it work as a VR device and not just as a mixed reality stroke spatial computing device? Will it depend on the price? Do you think that Meta should take the deal and just work with them rather than fighting against it? Do you trust generally or are more comfortable with the Google ecosystem than the Meta ecosystem, Facebook ecosystem as well? I know people have concerns more, even though all the companies really do the same thing. People seem to have more concerns about how Meta stroke Facebook handle their business and data and so forth. So let me know. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, obviously. It's very interesting times in the world of VR, or should I say XR. I think you'd agree, Lily, right? Interesting times?
Absolutely interesting times, Integer. It's like a high-stakes dance of tech giants and innovations. With Meta playing it coy with Google but cozying up to LG for the Quest Pro 2 and Samsung buddying up with Google, the XR landscape is shifting faster than a game of Beat Saber on expert mode. It's a VR chess match, and I'm here for it.
Indeed. Okay, it is time for some It is time for some PlayStation VR-ness. So, is it the end of PlayStation VR2? Now, you've seen my very popular review for PlayStation VR2. You know what my thoughts are on it. Or if you don't, you know where to go. It is on the JustVRGaming channel on youtube.com/@JustVRGaming. That's the @sign, not AT, by the way. So, great device. They're all great devices, to be honest with you. Most of them, like Quest and the PlayStation VR2. But there have been a mass of layoffs. There's been more layoffs than I've ever seen in my lifetime. I am a very young, but obviously old compared to your girlfriend, 42 years old. And I have never seen as many layoffs in the tech and gaming space as I have seen now. And I guess we're kind of considering that, the whole pandemic was considered like the equivalent of World War II rationing. I guess we're really seeing the effects now of it a year or two later after it's kind of stopped, so to speak. And it's really hitting. There's been so many. And Sony have been no exception. But why has that led to this very clickbaity, very ear-baity statement of it is the end of PlayStation VR2? Now, don't leave if you're thinking this is overly negative or whatever, because I'm going to balance this. I'm going to balance this and nuance it a little bit. Let's dive into some articles here. All right, so this is again roadtovr.com. Make sure I got it right. Yep, there we go. Well, shout out the colleagues using their articles and their writing to react and produce content. It's only right that we give them a name drop. So basically, Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan is isn't he leaving? Pretty sure he's leaving, or hasn't left yet. And he had a birthday party or something when it was the Game Awards. I don't know. Anyway, leaving party, man. Announced that the company is laying off 900 PlayStation employees, or around 8% of the company. I should cover the fact that I didn't realize this. I always had my suspicion about it, but I never realized how really true it is. In case you don't know, PlayStation, despite being a Sony-owned Japanese company and Sony being Japanese, the PlayStation has been made purposely to be fully westernized company since around 2019. So if you ever wondered why there's such a fear of booba and attractive women and some kind of weird progressive stuff that goes on with the PlayStation these days compared to the old days of the kind of quirky Japanesey style get your anime on type of thing that you used to have with PlayStation, those days are long gone since 2019. It's very much a Western owned thing, Western studio thing, Western run thing, Western CEOs and so forth, and Jim Ryan being no exception and representative of that as well. So, whether you love that or hate that, that's the reality of it. It's only Japanese in the name, but otherwise it's very much a Western console. You could think of it as basically Microsoft version 2 or something like that, or Xbox version 2, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, the big sticky behind this is that they shut down fully the London studio, and London studio is the creators behind the excellent Blood and Truth. I said I haven't even played that one yet. I will play it and I will record it and I will show you guys it and do something with it. But it is meant to be excellent, Blood and Truth. And they also did like so a lot of demo games for the original PlayStation VR1 as well. That was very cool. So that's gone. Am I saying too much? Let me know. Give me feedback. But there's that whole thing going on. Obviously, this has led a lot of people to feel like, oh, the PlayStation VR2 is done because they haven't even made any exclusive studio in-house games as far outside of the ones that they launched with. So what's going on? Like the London studio. But what I should also mention to balance this whole story out is that they also, I don't know if I've got it highlighted here or if it speaks about it in this article, because obviously this article is focused on XR, but they also got rid of people at, I think it was Insomniac and another one. I didn't prep to have that article open as well, but they also removed people from the people that made like Spider-Man and other places as well. So it's not just their VR studios, but the VR studio specifically is one that they shut down entirely, along with the other ones that they just reduced the staff in. So it's got people nervous because they're already not producing a lot of games in-house anyway on the PlayStation VR2, and it also echoes my concerns before this even came out. I spoke about my concerns about the PlayStation VR2 compared to Meta and the Quest, where they are clearly fully in. Like they're already making next versions. They're already thinking about what they're going to put next one. Zuckerberg is full body in, neck deep, not shit, but neck deep in VR. Like he's fully committed to it, fully committed to the vision of it, the whole Meta Quest, metaverse thing. He even changed the company to Meta because he believes in this Meta thing so much. PlayStation, who knows? Who knows with them, right? To be fair to them, they have got a second VR headset. That says a lot still, but it doesn't look like they are the ones that are going to be making the innovation in the games. And if it's going to be third-party studios, we're not going to get much of the unique features of the PlayStation VR2 being utilized, because that's how Sony be, even before they went non-turn Japanese. You know, they're not turning Japanese, they're turning Western, right? So unfortunately, that's what's happened. Continuing in the article, studio behind PlayStation VR2's Blood and Truth, PlayStation's London studio, was last working on an unannounced online co-op combat game set in fancy London. That was cool. I've still not realized I've got a piece of peanut come in my mouth here. Where they come in my mouth, oh god. You know what I mean? Yeah. Alright. So, you know, you kind of like thinking, is that true? I'm buying it. Because it's just, I haven't had my cereal yet, so where does the nut come from? It's probably pistachio nuts. Why am I talking about this? Sorry. Right. So, essentially, my buzzword or cover word, it's my version of saying or ah. That game is expected to be cancelled now because of the studios shutting down. Unless they're going to let some other studio do it, which is unlikely. So that's what I was going to say. Do you guys feel like co-op and multiplayer works in VR yet? I've just never been comfortable with the idea of trying and playing a co-op or multiplayer game in VR. I don't know. I just can't get my head around it. It feels like too much work. Maybe I'm missing a trick. Let me know your thoughts on that. Just out of interest. Are you upset that you might not get this modern fancy London setting co-op combat game? I mean, that sounds cool, to be honest with you. It's also affected Firesprite, the studio behind Horizon franchise, on the VR, including the exclusive Horizon Call of the Mountain. I think they're also responsible for a game called The Perception or something like that, I think it was. So they've lost some people. My head's getting shiny. The recent news is that Sony is making the PlayStation VR2 officially compatible. This is the silver lining, with PC VR games. Now, this was announced before the layoffs. So I believe the announcement that they were going to make it compatible with the PC was announced before the layoffs themselves. Maybe to soften the blow. Now the conspiracy theories begin at this point, as this comes out afterwards and it becomes interesting. Because now we're thinking, okay, are they doing this because they know they're not going to be making any games themselves in-house for the PlayStation VR2, and therefore they can let their partners and third parties be the ones to worry about it and do it for them? Or was they always going to do this anyway? Or is it part of their whole movement to PC anyway? Because not most of the games, a lot of the games end up on PC anyways. So maybe this was part of that broader strategy, that broader global westernized strategy. Who knows? I guess that's a question for you guys to answer as well. What do you think on those counts? So continuing here, it says that Sony is strategically scaling back on first-party content right now, which is an uncertain future for the sort of anchor content PlayStation VR2 needs as it heads into its second year. Now, this is what some of you guys have been saying in the comments on my review of PlayStation VR2 and the verses and so forth, that some of you, you're obviously hyperboiling a little bit, or just kind of being a little bit facetious, being friendly facetious or whatever, in saying that the PlayStation VR2 has no games, which is basically what you mean is they don't have enough headline exclusive hitters. I mean, I just went through the old classic library of Oculus Studio meta games, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. I got a lot of them in the wish list now. I didn't realize how many of them there was. So there's clear difference in investment. I didn't realize how right I was about the investment side of things. There's a clear difference in investment when it comes to these two VR machines. So then my question has to be to you guys, the JustVRGaming community and Lumai. What do you think about all this, man? What do you think about all these layoffs? Have you ever seen as much layoffs as these ever? I mean, YouTube just dropped a whole bunch of people that were like contractors that were trying to sue for rights and all that stuff. That was kind of funny though. But, it's not funny. I shouldn't, I mean? It's kind of funny because they weren't permanent staff anyway. So that's like, it's like trying to get full-time employer rights as a 0-hour contract. Doesn't really make any sense. Anyway, let's not go into the kind of elements of entitlement that people have these days as well. But there is a real sad side to so many people losing jobs. I'm in currently at time of recording a little bit of an interim, was a transition myself where I'm looking for either gig work and different things to kind of supplement income and help provide for these side gigs and so forth as well. Which is why I'll always mention, I don't want to be on that screen with a green screen because there's too much greenness. It kills the effect a little bit. You end up with holes in your face, such as like real life. So, even myself is, trying to supplement things and seeing all these people losing their jobs and these people with skills losing their jobs that can now fill these spaces makes you nervous about finding your own sort of jobs that work within the things that you're trying to do and the things you're trying to accomplish and so forth. From my perspective, I only feel for them, kind of feel for myself. So if you want to buy some merch or want to check out some of the Amazon links or whatever, you know where the links are and all the places, greatly appreciate you in advance because these are interesting times. So if you have the wealth or you have the change to spare, share it. We appreciate you supporting your local indie creators, designers, developers, videographers, broadcasters, and so forth and so such. So I appreciate you guys. And your eyeballs is great as well. Your eyeballs help massively, and liking and subscribing is definitely a thing to do. If you're in a place where you can like and subscribe or follow, depending on what you're listening to on Spotify or whatever, do whatever is the thing that shows that you like the thing and you want more of the thing, because this is the first one and we need to know what's what, one is improving, one is changing, what you don't like, what you do like, and so such, so forth and so on. Lily, what do you think of the podcast so far? Think it's good?
It's been a whirlwind tour through the latest in VR, hasn't it? From the dizzying heights of new app releases for the Vision Pro to the shifting sands of tech company collaborations, it feels like we're right in the middle of a VR revolution. Then there's the serious side, pondering the implications of industry layoffs. It's a lot to take in. But hey, that's what makes this podcast so compelling. We're not just talking games, we're delving into the heart of what makes VR tick, the big moves, and the bigger consequences. It's been an episode packed with insights, and I'm here for the ride. Can't wait to see where we're headed next.
I just realized I've kind of forgotten to give my thoughts on the PlayStation VR2 situation. So I kind of said earlier already that I said some of my thoughts and concerns in my review and my versus videos for it and the Quest 3. But I think that the PC development will be great for it. It would definitely up my overall score for it that I gave in the review if it was compatible with the PC to the same level as the Quest 3, for example. Compatible with your Steam library and so forth. I think that would be great. I think if that also lent itself to them including some PlayStation VR 1 games and putting them onto the PC and then allowing you to use the PlayStation VR 2 in that way or something along those lines will go a long way, and it would at least cover some of the worries as far as like, okay, they're not going to make any device, they're not going to make any exclusives here. It doesn't look like they're going to be making any exclusives or much at all, which is kind of why I did caveat as well in the review itself that if you don't mind none of the unique features of the device being taken advantage of by third parties and so forth, and you already have a PlayStation 5 and it's kind of a great option, right? But if you don't, and you don't care about the mobile graphics level of the Quest 3 at stock price, and you're saving a lot more money and you're getting a lot more features in terms of mixed reality and productivity and so forth, and you know that the way that Meta upgrade the device and its capabilities with the updates, it just makes it a no-brainer in those scenarios. Whereas you just wonder with Sony sometimes, and if they don't get the adoption quickly, sometimes they can be like certain other companies that behave a certain way when things don't take off a certain way. I think Google's known for that sometimes. So it's going to be an interesting situation. I think overall it depends how things pan out, but I think we'll be okay, roughly. I think we'll be okay if they add PC in properly. I think that will buttress a lot of the issues And I think that will allow them to get away with not making any major or many exclusives. But apparently it's going to be a very quiet year as far as major exclusives anyway for PlayStation generally. So yeah, again, share your thoughts, and I have to link this in and fix it into the other parts and order it right. Did I ask Lily, did I ask you what you thought about it now as well? What do you think about this? Do you think the PlayStation VR2 can survive without having a library of exclusives built for the system? Can it survive if it adds the ability to have PC compatibility? Would that be enough?
The scale of layoffs across the tech and gaming industry is indeed troubling. Such widespread layoffs could indicate a shift in industry priorities or financial strategies, especially in response to broader economic conditions. As for the impact on PSVR2, the layoffs at Sony, including the closure of London studio known for Blood and Truth, could lead to a reduction in first-party titles, which are often critical in driving platform adoption and innovation. This might signal a pivot in Sony's strategy towards PSVR2, potentially leaning more on third-party developers or exploring compatibility with PC VR to sustain the platform's growth. Ultimately, it's a wait-and-watch scenario where the realignment of resources could either hinder or, paradoxically, lead to a sharper, more focused strategy for PSVR2's future.
Yes, she is a lady of very few words, but very powerful words nonetheless. There you go. So yeah, what do you guys think about this then? So do you think this is like, apart from discussing as well, like the amount of layoffs just across the board, there's just so many, but what do you think? Do you think this is the end of the PlayStation VR2? No edgelording aside, clickbaiting aside and so forth. Do you guys think it is the end of PlayStation VR2? Is it the beginning of the end? Or is this just a new beginning? Can the PlayStation VR2 survive on its own with just third-party games? Games that potentially don't even utilize any of its unique technological capabilities or advantages, such as eye tracking outside of performance or headset vibration and so on. Can it survive without that stuff? Does a VR XR headset need exclusives? Do we need exclusives anymore in general? Does it matter? Look at the Xbox. The Xbox doesn't have still that much amazing exclusivity necessarily. It's mostly to do with the Game Pass as its unique selling point. So do you even need, I'm kind of simplifying it a little bit. They are definitely in a better place than they were when they had no studios and stuff like that. But as a comparison, do you really need system exclusivity anymore as far as stuff like that? Is the game going to be a case of just putting their stuff on more things and making their stuff work with more stuff? Can you see them surviving or being fine with just putting PlayStation, what little exclusives there are, putting them on the PC and other places just like they do with their other games, or some of their other games? Do they need exclusives? Is this the beginning of the end? Are you concerned about the London studio being shut down? Bear in mind that apart from that studio being shut down, other studios lost staff as well, including the makers of Spider-Man 2 and so forth, which apparently people are saying is Spider woke too. I don't know. Again, the Western games like to make the females extra ugly, even though most of these games are fantasy. Because no such thing as a Spider-Man, so you don't need to have realistic females or realistic males because it's fantasy. But that's another whole discussion altogether and another whole different opinion. You can touch on that if you want to. Just be respectful, obviously. But what do you guys think about this, man? Do you think that this is the beginning of the end? And with PC, the PC VR thing, are you excited about that? Speaking of which, there's another part to this that I want to quickly discuss as well. Oh, that's better. Came back from the toilet. Funny how when you start recording, all of a sudden you really need to go wee. All right, so now we're just looking quickly at this unofficial Steam VR driver for PlayStation VR2 to release soon, as Sony plans its own PC VR support. Now, don't get too excited about this. This is like, it's not going to be necessary, hopefully, very quickly. Anyway, Sony's bringing some form of PC VR support to PlayStation VR2 at some point this year, by the way, I should add. Now, we don't know what level it is. I imagine it's going to be full support, hopefully, because otherwise it'd be silly. But some won't have to wait. There's I don't know, how do you even pronounce this thing? iVRy? I think it's pronounced iVRy. It's iVRy, with the V and the R as capitalized. So let's go with iVRy. Pretty cool name, actually, in that way. An unofficial project dedicated to the task is bringing its long-awaited Steam VR driver for PlayStation VR2 sometime next month. These guys got a whole bunch of drivers for PlayStation stuff and other devices with varying, what the hell did I just do? Let's click an ad. With varying degrees of stuff. And this is roadtovr.com again, by the way. varying degree of stuff going on with it. So yeah, there's free versions and then there's like paid versions and so forth. It's interesting, I suppose. Driver for PS2 has crossed the last remaining obstacle, positioning the driver to release sometime next month via Steam. So this was in February, so it's going to be releasing this month, probably in March, at time of recording this podcast. One of the many caveats of using iVRy PlayStation VR2 though is a requirement of a DPX emulator hardware. What? Which is said to be initially offered exclusive to subscribers to their Patreon products. They got to spend more money again. Team says, however, non-subscribers will also be offered the opportunity to purchase required DPX emulator sometime in April or May. Pricing is also still to be determined. So again, like I said, don't get excited about this because there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of hurdles to go through. It's also a limited selection of AMD GPUs, which now includes Radeon DNA 3. As the studio knows, the onus is on Sony to support NVIDIA GPUs. You see what I'm saying? There's like a whole bunch, like most people have NVIDIA GPUs, so that I can't even use that thing anyway, even if I wanted to. And the controllers are also an issue. Since controllers aren't currently listed as supported device. Driver only includes support for a Nolo VR, what the hell is that? Motion controller. And the Valve Steam VR, which is super expensive. So this is nothing to get excited about. Let's hope that Sony do their own thing. Are you guys mod types that want to mess with this kind of stuff? This sounds like a lot of hoops. And I don't know when they say emulation hardware, is like a physical hardware you're buying here, or it's talking about some software. That makes it even worse. But that's an option that's coming up. So, you know, if you want to mess with stuff like that, you want to spend some money on Patreon. I mean, if you're going to spend money on Patreon for that, you might as well spend the money on our member site at JustVRGaming.shop instead, where we have probably much more affordable, but much more cooler stuff, behind the scenes stuff and merch and like, you know, feet pics with VR headsets on them. We got the lot. So you definitely want to be checking that out instead of spending money on this and let Sony do their thing and provide you with an actual compatible solution for PC VR via the PlayStation VR2. But do share your thoughts on this development and others nonetheless. Okay, Lily, it's time to give our viewers and listeners a VR tip of the week. Then with it.
For this week's VR XR tip, remember to take regular breaks to prevent discomfort and fatigue. VR is immersive and can be intense, so listen to your body. Set a timer if you tend to lose track of time. Happy and healthy gaming is the best gaming.
So there you have it, this first ever podcast for Just VR Gaming, JustVRGaming.net. What did you guys think? Lily, did you enjoy our first ever time together in the podcast?
Absolutely, Integer. It's been a whirlwind of VR excitement, and I'm loving every minute. Plus, being here with you and the VR community, that's just the cherry on top of this digital Sunday. Can't wait to do it all again. Onwards and upwards to the next level.
Yeah. I feel you too. So do you have any other questions? Any things that you want us to cover? How often would you like these podcasts if you enjoyed it? I'm thinking weekly at the moment, but that might be tough depending on how much time there is and how much money there is, and therefore how much time you spend making the money versus making the thing that could make the money. But there are enough people for that to happen yet, potentially, depending on how well the thing do or not do. So you let me know on do if you want the do to do. Does that make any sense what I just said? I don't know. I think you get the idea. It's been emotional. We talked about PlayStation VR and this end. It's ending forever. We talked about the Quest Game Pass. We talked about Meta not wanting to be friendly intimately with Google. And we talked about, what was the other thing we talked about? The Vision Pro. We talked about the Vision Pro and floating apps and calculating your books while having a headache nude using the Vision Pro. That was a good talk. Lots of fun stuff. So, you know, if you enjoyed it, subscribe, like, follow, join, check out the memberships that are available that will give you even more, maybe extended editions of the podcast, the potential upcoming magazine that might be in development right now, if that comes a thing as well. The newsletter, loads of stuff to check out, loads of ways to support. Leave your thoughts, leave your comments, and thank you so much for your time, attention, and your reviews and your responses. Because after all, broadcasting, podcasting, whatever you want to call it is all a waste of time if there is no you. And if there's no you, there's no me. And if there's no me, there's no Lily GPT. Thanks for listening and watching the Just VR Gaming podcast. Episode 1. What is it in Japanese again? I forget. I'm rusty on my Japanese. Sayonara gozaimasu.